Then we'll go ahead and get started. So Lois, probably more for you than for Roxy and Kate, who are also on the phone. So Roxy and Kate, Lois from Colorado State, if you don't already know each other. And Lois, this is Kate and Roxy from Emporia in Kansas. How are things going for you, Lois, in terms of configuring your user accounts and your user groups and your workflow?
We're working on it. We are really busy right now, so we're trying to fit it in with all of our other projects, but it's working okay.
Okay, good. If you have any hiccups whatsoever, Alicia's on the call for that support reason, right? Just don't hesitate, please, to just put a little quick note into the support queue, and she'll be helping you whenever you need it.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. And Roxy, just to be sure, Roxy, you guys are good to go on that, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Then today's focus, right? Last time we focused on an understanding of your media library, how to build your templates, and then an introduction for the basic template elements, how to configure them. But we'll schedule that separately. I think Roxy, right, and Kate, we've been able to talk about your experience. Lois, have you? I imagine the answer may still be the same, right? In terms of there might be other things going on for you that you didn't get a chance to practice. I
did not.
Okay.
I do have the templates uploaded, but we haven't worked with them yet.
Okay. Okay, great. How did you find the template upload process?
Easy. Super easy.
Okay. Cool. And did I hear a plural in there? You had multiple templates that you uploaded?
I did, just because I wanted to play with them.
Yeah, that's great. And I like the word play. It's just fun. Great. So whenever you get ready to do that, know that you have that how-to guide and you have the video, and you also have us in the support queue too. Ryan, welcome. I'm going to say hello to you and put you on the spot here real quick. Reflections on, did you have a chance to play with the configuration of the elements in your template?
No, I'm not had an opportunity quite yet to get in that, but look to do that this week sometime. Yeah.
No worries, Ryan. I think CSU's in the same boat, and it's quite a busy time for everybody. So the main reason for my ask is not to put pressure, but it's really to just say, if you have any trouble while you're doing it, we want to help you, right, and be Johnny on the spot. So please don't hesitate for if you have any doubts, any questions, to just put a little ping in the support queue, and we'll be ready for you. We know that this is that time for you, so we've prioritized the support queue for you. So no pressure, just and then the other thing that we'd love is feedback on the videos and the how-to guide. Do they meet your needs in terms of, if you wanted to just use that and not reach the support queue, are they complete enough? And are there any other details that we could add in there? So we'll take that as feedback too. So then, moving on then, the two things that we're going to focus on today are the managing your snippets and utilizing section toggler elements. And these are really awesome, and streamlining, as well as powerful ways in which you can get more out of your email template than we actually even thought, which is great. And so, Lois, I may ask you to listen with some interesting ears, because Alicia is going to share with you how you can make, out of one template, how you can make a versatile enough template with the section togglers that you might not need your second template, just as a thought. But so it's built so it can do that, but that doesn't necessarily mean you have to do that, right? Like I shared with you on our first meeting, we have two templates, one for EMAS education, client education, and one for marketing, because we know that we will have the need for both of those templates. But so you might also have the same. So with that, quick overview and a reminder, we're still in step 2 here, getting ready for step 3. And we're focusing mainly for you all as administrators, reviewers, and you all as if you are the HTML editor. We're going to share information with you as if you were, but realize that you may also be partnering, as you shared with us last time, that you might have an HTML editor on campus to help you do this. And then I'm going to plant a seed before we move over to Alicia. At the end of this session, we'll leave about 10 minutes, 15 for us to talk about best next steps to get your HTML editor trained. So we'll need to schedule some new training, and we'll do that at the end of the session today. Here's what we hope to accomplish in our time together. Alicia's going to show you how to configure 3 or 4 basic snippets for a template. She's also going to define what a snippet is. And then she's going to show you the power of the section toggler. And you can see we've got 3 bullets surrounding this, 3 learning objectives surrounding the section toggler. So it's that powerful of a tool. So we're going to offer you the strategic view today, and then be sure in the special training we make for the HTML editors to do the deep dive if we don't have time for that today. Any questions or needs for today's training session besides what we've just gone through? Okay. You all have the resources, which is great. And here's Alicia. I'm going to change and make her presenter. And she's going to take you through those 2 main features.
Morning, everybody. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we're seeing the email pop up, the main screen.
Okay, great. So here we are in Campaign Builder. We're going to go through the process of snippet creation first. So just to give you a quick idea of how that works, there are 2 steps to snippets if you want to include them in emails for your builders. The first step is to set up the snippet in the snippet library. And then the second step would be to configure an element in a template that would be of the type snippet selector. So I'm going to show you both of those things now. The first step is to go right here into our snippets library here at the top in the main menu. And you're going to see that I have already set up a few snippets of our own. Just to give you a quick idea of what we're talking about, I'm going to go ahead and show you this already created social media footer. So I'm going to click preview to show you what that looks like in the end. So as you can see, this is a block of code that comprises a footer element. Sorry, I shouldn't say element. I don't want to confuse you. It comprises a footer bit for your email. And these can be thought of as sort of building blocks. So in the end, you will see that these will be interchangeable for the builder. So I'm going to go ahead and close out of that one. And we are going to create a new snippet right now. So what I've done is I've opened my practice template, the one that comes with your startup kit. I've opened that over here in Notepad++. I've scrolled through my code until I've found the section with the comment Start Footer 0. So that tells me that this is the beginning of the very first footer. What we're talking about there is our footer that has our tagline in it. So you can see that tagline right here, enrich your understanding, drive results. That's what's in this little footer piece. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight everything from start footer 0 to end footer 0. I'm going to copy that whole thing, and that is going to be my new snippet. So I'm going to click the green Add New Snippet button. And for some reason, I found this yesterday. I don't know if it's expected behavior or not, but sometimes the new snippet window includes the code of the last one you created. I'm not sure why. So if that happens, just go ahead and clear that out. And then Control-V to paste that code that I've just copied, the footer 0 code. I'm going to go ahead and click the preview button to make sure that it is what I want it to be. So that's what it's going to look like in the end. That's the building block for that piece of the footer. So I'll click the OK button to get out of the preview mode. And since I am satisfied with that preview, I'm going to go ahead and give this a name. This should be something that's easily understandable because this name is going to be what shows up in the menu for the snippet selector. So when we're talking about a snippet selector, it's on the builder side, it's a menu of different snippets they can choose from to include in that space in the email. So they need to understand by looking at that list of snippets what those snippets are. In a normal case, I would probably name this something like footer tagline, but because I already have one that's called that, I'm going to just preface that with training so that we don't get them mixed up. So now that I have my name, I'm going to go ahead and click that green Save button. And now we can see that training footer tagline right down there in the list of snippets in our library. So just to give you a general idea, again, I'm going to, let's look at a different one of these snippets just so you can start wrapping your head around the different ways that this is handled. Clicking preview on this one. This one's called footer company info. And as you can see, that's exactly what it is. That's our address and our unsubscribe and our contact us link. So that's what that building block looks like.
Does it make sense to you all what a snippet is?
I think so, yeah.
Yes.
Already as you.
Okay. And the way I like to think of snippets, in addition to pieces of sort of information that would be standard, it could also be signatures, right? If you wanted choices, like if you wanted each of your counselors to have a separate signature in an email, for instance, snippets could be individual. They could be individualized. So you could have a. Go ahead.
So what Sarah's talking about there is, for example, here's an example of the WSU snippet for their signature block. As you can see, this one is particular to the Office of Admissions. I'm guessing that they probably have several more of these for the different departments on campus. So those can just easily be interchanged by the email builder once those have been set up as snippets. And I'm going to get back into this document at the end of this portion of the training to talk about how you would request that information from your coders. But right now, I think we would like to get into our practice template, which is the one that's included in your startup kit, so that we can go ahead and look at what that looks like to set up a snippet selector element in the template. So I'm going to go ahead and close out of the snippet library. We're going to go into the template section right up here in the main menu. And my practice template is the one you'll use. Our practice template is the one I'm using today because the one that's entitled My Practice Template is already fully developed, having been using it for my documentation for that development guide. So we're going to use the training one that we used last week. Excuse me. Okay, so I'm going to hit the toggle view button, which, if you remember from last week, it's just going to hide the fields at the top so that I have more space to look at my code. And we're going to scroll down until we find that footer 0 section, which is quite a ways down. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this guy all the way down there. Okay, so here we are. And here's our footer 0 section. So if you remember, this is what I just copied out of that template when it was opened in Notepad++. This is the exact same section that I just created that snippet for in the snippet library. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight that whole footer 0 section all the way to the end comment. And we're going to say insert to create a new element for that section. So the element type here is going to be HTML snippet selector. And you'll notice those options down at the bottom will change when we have selected that snippet selector type element. I'm going to give this a label, so this is going to be footer block 0. And what we're looking at down here is basically a list of all the snippets that live in that snippet library. So what we're doing at this point in time as the template developer is we're going to make a decision as to which of those snippets will be available to the builder in this particular snippet selector element. What I'd like to do for this particular snippet selector element is to allow them to choose from any of those 4 main footer blocks in that snippet selector. So I'm going to choose the training footer tagline that we just created. As you can see, I've got 2 other tagline snippets in here from previous construction/testings. I'm going to ignore those for now because I want to use the one we just created. In addition to the tagline block, I would also like to allow them to select the social media block, or the nav links block, or the company info block. At this
Alicia,
point,
you ready to be able to share this later? But can they choose all 4 at the same time if they want all 4 snippets in there? If they want the footer, tagline, and the social media, or are they 2 separate snippet elements that need to be created for that?
yes, it would be 2 separate snippet selector elements. So what we're going to do today is we're going to create 3 of them, and I'm going to show you how they can be interchanged in the email when we get to the builder side.
Great, thank you.
So having chosen which snippets would be available to the builder, the last step in this process is going to be to select a default snippet. So that's what's going to show up in the email by default, and that's what will be able to be changed by the builder. I'm going to, this was the tagline, yeah? Okay, so I'm going to select the tagline as the default block, and then I'm just going to go ahead and click that green Save button. And now you'll see that whole footer 0 block has been replaced with the snippet selector element. Down here in footer 1, I'm just going to scroll really quick to make sure I'm positive of what I think this is. And yes, that is what I thought it was, which this is the social media footer block. So footer 1, once again, I'm going to highlight that one from the beginning comment all the way to the end comment.
Alicia, can you give them a hint as to how you know it's the social media block? Because they might have a very similar block in their templates.
Yeah, I was looking over here at the code, and I just know from working with this that these abbreviations in the ping files are Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Ping, or Pinterest,
Right.
YouTube. So it's just having from having worked with this code. But if there was any doubt, what you could do is go ahead and click this preview button here. Change your device size so you can see everything, and then if you scrolled all the way down, oops, a little bit too far. Come on back. That will give you an idea of what order these things occur in. So you can see that tagline block is first, the next footer block is the social media buttons, the next one is the nav links, and then the final one is the company info.
Thank you.
And I'm just going to go back and make sure the cursor is where it needs to be. Okay, so highlighting footer 1 all the way to the end comment. All right, so that's going to be my next snippet selector element, is this footer 1 block. So once again, we'll go ahead and say insert to create that new element. And we're going to select HTML snippet selector as the type. And again, I'm going to give this the training prefix just because we don't want to mix things up. And this will be training footer social. So just for the purposes of this example, you can certainly do things your own way or in a different fashion or, you know, different configuration. But for the purposes of this example, what we're going to do is do the same thing. I'm going to select all 4 of those main footer blocks. Footer tagline, company info, nav links, and I'm stopping to think to myself, sorry. We're creating the social media footer right here. Actually, no, we're not. I'm getting myself confused. Okay, so here are all the snippets we're offering to the builder. We're going to give them that footer tagline snippet that we created together, and then we're going to give them those 3 snippets that already existed. So they have the same 4 snippets that they do in the first snippet selector. And then by default, I'm going to make this one the social media footer block, because that's what we're overriding here in the code. So once we've made all those selections, we're going to say save. And we now have an element for that footer block that will allow them to select one of those snippets. Next is the nav links, and I'm going to just skip over those for the moment because I don't want to do this too many times. What we're going to do finally is to just go ahead and do that footer 3 block, which is the company info. So I'm going to highlight that all the way to the end comment. There's end footer 3. And one final time, I'm going to say insert for the new element and select that HTML snippet selector type. This is going to be training, pardon me, footer company. And once again, the same 4 snippets are going to be made available to the builder. This time I'm going to choose the company info block for the default, and we'll go ahead and say save on that. At this point, I have replaced three footer blocks with snippet selectors. So I'm going to go ahead and save and update, which that means this is going to update any emails that have already been based upon this template. And once that's been saved and all those emails updated, I'm going to close out of the templates library. And now I'm going to get into our practice email, which is based upon the template we were just working on. And you can see here, I apparently lost track of my naming conventions. I apologize for that. I should have stuck with footer block 1 and 2. Sorry about that. So please imagine in your minds that that's what I did. So as you can see down here, the defaults will appear as we've selected them to appear. However, as the builder, I now have the ability to come up here and select footer block 0. And let's say I don't want it to be what it is right now. Right now it's the tagline. Let's pretend I don't want it to be the tagline. I want it to be company info. So we'll go ahead and select company info from the option menu and select apply changes. Now if we scroll down, you can see there that that initial block that had the tagline has now been replaced with the company info block. Now I have the company info block down here too. I don't want it twice. So I'm going to select that final footer block. I'm going to change that to tagline. Say apply changes. And if we scroll back down here, you can see now that our tagline is at the bottom and the company info is at the top. So by giving them, the builders, snippet selectors for particular blocks that you would like them to be able to change out these blocks of stuff, you're giving them the ability to put things in whatever order they wish. Or the other option is, for example, what if I don't want these nav links here? I don't want them at all. You can come up there, oops, sorry, that was the wrong one. Oh, you know what? Let's pretend something else, you guys, because I didn't put in an element for that block. Remember, we skipped over it in the code, so let's go ahead and select the social media. Let's say we don't want that one. We're going to just get rid of that social media block, and it's super easy. All you got to do is select that social media block, deselect the enabled button, and say apply changes. Now when we scroll back down, all gone. So this is it's another really great tool within Campaign Builder that allows for some really wonderful customization on the part of the builder without compromising any of the branding or styling of the actual content the way that it's been coded. This also eliminates the need for multiple templates. If, for example, you had a few templates with social media and company info and a few templates with only nav links, for example, that eliminates the need to have those separate because you can now just interchange and or remove each of those blocks. So that's the power of snippets. Anybody have questions over snippets? Okay, so let's get back into this Word document. If you are a manager or an admin person or a coordinator and you need to communicate to your HTML expert what you would like to see in your snippets, the general way that I've seen these used so far, and you might come up with some interesting ideas of your own, but because they are static blocks of code, meaning that the builder cannot modify the contents of that code, they can only interchange the blocks. They're usually used for things like signature blocks and footer blocks because those are things that will be the same every time, and the builder doesn't need to change the content of those. They just need to be able to swap them out. So if you are a manager person or an admin person and you need to communicate to your coder, your HTML expert, what is needed in each of the snippets that you envision for your department, this is an easy way to do it. So right here we have an example of one of WSU's signature blocks. This over here on the left would be sort of a rough example of a mock-up that you could create for your HTML experts. So like here at EMAS Pro, when we get ready to do emails, Sarah gives me mock-ups in Word, which is what we're looking at here. This is a Word document, and she just makes it look exactly like she wants to see it in the end, and then I, as the HTML expert, translate those requests into actual code. So this would be a really easy way to communicate to your HTML expert what you want to see in the end, and then that person could write the code to make that happen. Anybody have questions over that process? Okay, Sarah, if you are comfortable moving on, we can move on to section togglers.
Yeah, the only thing I would add there before we move on to section togglers is that, right, just thinking wise in terms of project management for EMAS Campaign Builder, that would mean, if Alicia, if you go back to that that Word document there, that mock-up, if you wanted, right, in order for your HTML editor to have everything they need in order to build the template and configure the elements and do your snippets together, you would need to gather either an Excel spreadsheet or some kind of Word document, some kind of source with all of that information. You can notice that we left the Skype ID blank. If the HTML code editor got that, they'd have to come back to you and say, well, what's the Skype ID for first name, last name? And every other recruiter or admissions counselor that you left that blank for. And same with the Twitter handle, right? So one of the things you can do in terms of project efficiency for Campaign Builder is if you want something like a counselor signatures or a footer like the one on the right, then find a way to absolutely provide all of the details to the HTML editor, including the format, not just the content. All right. If there aren't any questions on that, then Alicia, yeah, please do the section toggler.
Okay. All right, so section togglers, I'm going to be completely honest with you guys because I'm learning as you are. I'm only a few steps ahead of your path, I think, and so I have just learned about section togglers within the past couple of weeks, and boy, I got to tell you, I am impressed. These things are wonderful. I have been doing emails for EMAS Pro for at least 3 years now, I think, and as Sarah touched on before, we have several different templates. Before we got Campaign Builder, we had several different templates designed to handle different jobs. So for example, we have a template that's got a couple of sub-stories. We've got another template that's got both of those sub-stories, as well as a row of 3 mini-stories at the bottom of those sub-stories, depending on, you know, how much content we want to put out there and how many stories we have, et cetera, et cetera. Each of those templates I had to build separately. But with the section toggler, you only have to have one template, and you can sort of toggle in and out different sections of that template in order to create different layouts with the same template. It's a really powerful tool, and it's something that's going to save anybody who uses this product countless hours of manpower. So with that said, I'm going to show you what happens when you disable an element, because that's going to come into play in just a second. You're gonna understand why we need to do this in just a second. So let me go to my notes really quick and see which email I need to look at. Okay. One moment, please. Let's choose this one. Sorry about the loading time. Okay, there we go. All right, so what I want to show you right now is not a section toggler, but it is a little bit confusing when you start to think about section togglers, because it seems like it would be the same thing, but it's not. The reason I want to show you this is because there is a distinct difference between disabling an element and actually toggling it out. So right now we're going to disable that image that I'm pointing to right here that's with substory 1. I'm just going to disable that image and let's see what happens. Substory 1 image. And we're just going to uncheck the enabled box and say apply changes. Okay, so as you can see, the image went away, but the content stays over here on the left. So disabling an element will remove the element from the template, but it doesn't necessarily remove that entire section, which the result of that is that the content will still stay in place. The content that's not what you took out will still stay in its spot. It's not going to spread out over the width of this template because that image cell is still there. You've only removed the element. So understanding that, we're going to go ahead and look at what happens with togglers as opposed to disabling an element. So I've set up an email already with some togglers in place because we don't want to get too deep into how to make this work in the back end, but the value of these things is really what's important. So that's what we're going to be showing you today. All right, so here we are in my template that's configured with togglers. Now, as you can see, over here on the left, we have some elements that look different than anything that you've seen so far, and that's because these are toggler elements. This is the section header below main, which means this guy right here. I have made that into a toggled element, which can be toggled in and out of this template. We will do that in a second, but first, to follow on with what I've just showed you about disabling an element, I'm going to go ahead and toggle out that substory 1 image again. This time it's not going to be disabling the element, it's going to be actually toggling it out with this section toggler. So I have pre-created a section toggler for the image cell. I'm going to uncheck the section visible box and say apply changes. And look what happened. The substory 1 content is now flowing across the width of this entire cell, this entire div block. And that is because we used a section toggler for that image versus simply disabling the image element. So already you can see the value of this. There was no need to create a new template without the image in this block, which is what would have had to happen if you wanted this effect. Without that section toggler, you would have had to create a new template and code out the image cell. And this prevents any of that from needing to happen. This is just a really beautiful tool. So I'm going to go ahead and put that image back just for the moment. Checking that section visible box once again and saying apply changes. And now our image is back and our content is on the left where it should be. The next thing I want to show you in here is toggling out a whole substory. So if you can see down here in substory 2, I have created a toggler for this entire substory section. And my little box is covering it up. It is right here. So as you can see, the way that the program handles these togglers is that it has this sort of header element here, which is the toggler. And then as like sort of child elements to that toggler, here's your image, your headline, your text, and your button. Each of these are elements of their own that I can, as the builder, change depending on what has been allowed for me by the template developer. But if I take that substory 2 section toggler and I click on that and I select section visible box so that it is not visible and say apply changes, you're going to notice not only does substory 2 disappear completely and substory 3 floats up here to join substory 1, but now we also have, I just need to scroll a little bit, substory 2 section, you no longer see the elements available under that little toggler heading. If you look down here at the substory 3 toggler, all of the elements are still in place and editable because that has not been toggled out. Substory 2 has been toggled out, therefore there are no longer elements available to edit. So what we have essentially done is, again, removed an entire block of this template without having to code a whole new template. Finally, I want to show you down here, we have our 3 mini stories. They're all side by side. And once again, just to drive the point home, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the mini story 3 Sorry, I misspoke. Mini story 1. Mini story 1 has been configured with a toggler. So if we wanted, for example, to have some mini stories down here, but we don't need 3 of them, I have configured mini story 1 with a toggler, and I'm going to go ahead and remove that, or sorry, toggle that out. Uncheck the section visible box, say apply changes. And now if we scroll down here, we have 2 mini stories, and they have been repositioned so that they fit sort of centered, as opposed to having removed one of those mini stories and the other 2 staying where they were. They have now readjusted so that it looks like they belong there, and there should have been only 2. So once again, this is a case where you would have had to build a new template if you only wanted those 2 stories instead of 3, but you don't have to do that anymore because you have now section togglers. Very, very powerful tool. Anybody have questions? Okay. All right, so I think that brings us to the end of what I was going to show you guys today. I hope that you are all as impressed as I was with this section toggler, because it's, again, just going to save you countless hours of manpower on the back end. Being able to design your templates, have your HTML experts design your templates really well on the front end is going to provide so much flexibility and so much customization available to the builder that there's going to be very little work that needs to be done by the HTML expert after everything's been set up on the front end. So just some more wonderful, powerful tools available to you in EMAS Campaign Builder. And again, just to repeat what Sarah said, if you guys get into creating these things, building these things, developing these things, and you have questions or problems, do not hesitate to reach out to the support queue, and I'm happy to help you. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Sarah.
Cool. Thanks, Alicia. We have a little bit more time. Is there anything that anybody would like to see over again? Would you like to see how she created the section toggles? We showed you the power of it. We have a few more minutes. What's your preference?
I would like to see how the toggler was created.
Okay. Alicia, are you good to do that?
Sure, we can do that.
Okay, cool.
What I'm going to do is go back into my email that I was just showing you for the simple purposes of educating myself on what has not been toggled yet. I know I did a few things, but not all of them, so I'm going to find something that hasn't been done yet so we can do that together. Okay. Let's go ahead and toggle out mini story 2. So I'm going to get out of the email, and we'll go back into the template section here. And that template, that email was based upon the template called our practice template. So I'm going to open that one for editing. Actually, I think I'm wrong about that. Sorry. Rewind, sorry. This is a test toggler template. Ah, there we go. Okay. So I'm going to click toggle view so I can see more of my code. And I'm going to come down with my navigation bar here until I can find mini story 2. Here's the end of sub-story 3. Here's my triad section with all 3 of those mini stories in them. And you're going to see my section toggler for mini story 1 right here. This is what's been created for mini story 1. That is the start of the toggler. You scroll down just a little bit. There's the button, and there's the end of the toggle. So that's mini story 1. Mini story 2 then will begin right here, and I'm sorry, this particular template is not commented as much as your practice template is, but in your practice template I believe you do actually have comments that tell you where mini story 1, mini story 2, and mini story 3 live in the template. This one does not have those comments, so I know this because I've worked with this template. I know that's where it begins. Your template will have a comment that will help you find it. So at the beginning of the section that is mini story 2, I will place my cursor at the very beginning of that code. This is a little bit...
Yeah. I'm going to interrupt you for just a second, just because it's a very right moment. I'm hoping that what Alicia just mentioned in terms of the comments, you'll remember from the first coding template that we looked at, there was footer 0, footer 1, footer 2. That's what she's meaning by comments. So when you're working with your HTML coder, or like for instance, Lois, as you're importing your templates or you're working with your marketing department, and they might be able to add in those comments for you to be able to identify, as Alicia is very good at doing, the part of the template that would become an element that would become a toggler. So the more refined your template is in terms of the comments for each section, the easier this stage is. I just wanted to, there was a moment there that I just wanted to capture.
Yeah, Sarah's absolutely right. So I'm going to just, right here in Notepad++, this is your practice template that's in your startup kit. You can see right here that we've got start mini story 2. That's where you would be able to actually find the beginning of mini story 2. Just the one that we're looking at in the training today doesn't have those comments, but yours will.
because we've provided it.
Yeah, yeah.
That's not always going to be in your code, depending on who wrote your code.
Right, so in your particular templates to your institution, not the practice template that we give you, but your stuff, may or may not have these comments, but if you feel they are helpful to you, you could certainly ask your HTML expert to code a few of those in for you.
Yeah, folks, this is Andy. Just an observation, in good coding practice, pseudocode is sometimes called, which is comments explanation that actually identifies what the different parts of the code are. Extremely important, because that makes it realistic for somebody else to pick up the original person's coding and interpret and understand what the intent was.
Yep, that's absolutely right. Okay, so in order to insert a section toggler, this is a little bit different than when you do other kinds of elements. We're not actually going to highlight the whole thing. We're just going to position the cursor at the very beginning of the code that constitutes mini story 2, and we're going to click Insert. This time, this is going to be a section toggler type element. And all that needs to be configured for those is just a label. So I'm going to say mini story 2 toggle. And we'll go ahead and save that. And as a result, what's going to happen is that the program will pop in the start tag and the end tag wherever that cursor was positioned. All that needs to happen from this point is to take that end tag, highlight that, leave the start tag in place, highlight the end tag, and do a Control X to cut. So again, leaving that start tag in place. And we're going to come down to the end of the code for mini story 3, which I know from experience is going to end with that NTH tag. There it is right there. And I'm just going to do a Control V to paste that end toggle tag right there at the end of mini story 2. So right now we have a toggler start and a toggler end, and those are positioned like bookends on the front and the back of the code that constitutes mini story 2. I'm going to go ahead and say save and update right now. This is going to update that active email that's based upon this template. And we'll go ahead and close out of the templates library. So when we open back up that test toggling sections email, we're going to scroll down in this nav list here on the left, and you will now see you have a, oops, scroll more, there we go. You now have a mini story 2 toggle. So just going to very quickly come down here. Here's how it looks in its native state right there. There's 3 of the mini stories. Mm-hmm. And we can toggle out mini story 2 by selecting the mini story 2 toggle, uncheck the box that says section visible, and apply changes.
Kate, does that help?
It does, yes.
Okay. Any questions on that for you?
I don't think so.
Okay. All right. We are updating the how-to guide on how to do exactly what Alicia just passed through, so that will be ready for you. Ryan and Lois, I'm going to come around to you. Any questions on the section toggler?
No questions here.
Okay. Lois?
None here either.
Okay. Then the only thing I would add on to what we've talked about here, which is something that we will echo from the first 2 sessions, it would be our recommendation as a best practice, if you don't already. And Lois, because I know you mentioned this morning that you've already loaded your email templates into EMAS Campaign Builder, that somehow you designate those as your original templates, and then don't touch them. And then when you go to experiment, right, or play with your elements and your toggles and your snippets, you do that in the duplicated template, so that you always keep the email template that you brought in either from wherever it comes from, that you bring it in clean and original, and you don't touch the original, and then play with whatever duplicates, however many duplicates you want to play with. And the way that Alicia has shown you in terms of being able to use a training naming convention or a testing naming convention to help you differentiate between the code that should no longer be touched, the original code, and any of your additional versions of that. Questions on that? Cool. Alicia, is there anything else that you wanted to make sure to cover before we went back to scheduling our next session?
Nope, I think that does it for me.
Okay, cool. All right, then moving on. If you have no more questions, I'm thinking so, but you're welcome to bring them in at any point. Our recommendation from here forward is that you think about, between now and Friday, what snippets you might want to have in your emails, and then gather that data as we just talked about, and then think about what sections, if not all sections, would become toggled sections, and then what it might look like if you had one massive email template that had 50 sections in it that you could have them toggle back and forth as to whether they wanted them in or not, and giving the builder that much more versatility when they go to create their emails. So not a lot of work, just a lot of thinking, if you will, for homework for this time, because we know we've really given you a lot over the last 2 weeks, week and a half. We do have a training on Friday. Friday's training, 8:30 Pacific time, will be focused on, now that you have your email template. Sorry, your template is in EMAS Campaign Builder, and now that you've created an email in Campaign Builder, then how do you take that code and bring it back into EMAS Recruitment Pro and then through Campaign Pro to send it? So that would be the conclusion of the soup to nuts of what EMAS Campaign Builder can do. So that will be Friday. But it's not going to be the end of the trainings, because we know for sure we're going to do an HTML editor training. And so here's my question to Ryan and Lois, and I know we've already talked to Roxy prior to the session, just before everybody came on. We talked last time about you would like to do training, and you might need to bring in an HTML editor to do training, and I'd like to schedule that, put that on the calendar for you, but I want to do it at a time that works for you and whoever that HTML editor is. What are your thoughts? And we'll start with Lois first, and then go to Ryan in terms of, if you have availability that you know right now would work for you, we'll start there, and see if the other remaining people on the call can attend at that same time too. Or if you don't have, and you're happy to just defer to whatever time we offer, that would be great. Lois, can we start with you?
Sure. We don't actually have anyone designated to be our HTML person yet, so we're still kind of exploring on that. So I'll need to get back with you on that. It might be a few days.
No worries, no worries. If you were the person to do this, it sounds like it may be, would you want to, should we schedule the training anyway, or would you prefer to wait until after you have that person?
Well, let me talk to Tiffany and see where she's at with hiring somebody or making sure we have somebody on board with that.
Okay.
And thank you for your confidence in my ability.
Yeah. No, I think it's totally doable, and I think the documentation is written in a way that it's easy to follow. And as you can see, Alicia is trying to teach a little bit, but by little bit, you now know how to identify the social media sections of HTML templates. Right, because she's given you that hint, right, of how to find LinkedIn and Facebook and the FB and the LI, right? So bit by bit, hopefully we've helped a little there.
Right. I just want to say kudos to Alicia. Great job, Alicia. It's very clear and concise. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you.
Cool. All right, then, Ryan, moving to you, Indy. What's your preference in terms of doing a deeper dive on the HTML editing skills for Campaign Builder?
Yeah, Ron and I were talking about that this morning. We're, I think, still identifying which shop that individual is going to come from, and if we've actually got somebody on staff, so we need some time just to make sure we've got the right person in mind, and then check on their availability.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was also going to see, are these recordings are on EMASU?
They are.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to make sure. I want to share them with a colleague, with Jolanda, and
Yeah.
kind of get her just at least as a secondary up to speed on some of this. So I was going to have her run.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Awesome. Yeah. So hopefully you can see the web trail, right? On EMASU, there's your own EMAS Campaign Builder section. And hopefully I haven't timed out, but I may have timed out. I did. In the EMAS Campaign Builder learning section, we have all of the user guides here on the left. So this is the main user guide. Here's the how-to template that we've been focused on for the last 2 sessions, and the kit that Alicia was talking about in terms of the training kit with the images and that wonderfully colorful template code, and then here's all the videos that we have so far. So we will add today's videos to this one too. Cool. So, and here's the thing that Red, hopefully maybe we should talk about this for just a minute. We only have 1 minute left, but we can talk more about it on Friday. I'm hearing you struggle a little bit with, you know, who might be the HTML editor to help us do this. I want to sort of put it into context that it might take them a day to build that 50-section email template, maybe, and then they're not doing anything for the rest of the year because they've built all those toggles and they've built all those snippets, and so it may not need to be a staff member. You might just maybe there's somebody on campus you can contract out to. Maybe it's something we could do for you. So there's some possibilities, and I'll just plant that seed, and then we can talk further about it on Friday. I think of Chris Cortador, he's out of the office this week. He'll be back with us on Friday, but if he were to share out that, I think he shared in other trainings that you just build it once and then you won't have to do much at all with it in terms of your HTML editor role. After that, it's just all end user stuff and then sending it through EMAS Campaign Pro, which we'll learn on Friday. So with that, we won't schedule this HTML editor training yet, but I will lock something in on Friday so we know when our next session will be, and we'll do the deeper dive for all of the formatting all of those other elements. Thank you again for today. Thank you, Alicia, for a great training delivery, and we will stay on if you have questions, but we'll see you on Friday.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sarah, Alicia, thank you very much for putting the session on. Lois, Roxy, Ryan, thank you for being here with us.